This is Right to Life Radio. And now, here's your host, John DeRoe.
Our thanks to Bishop Joseph Brennan for joining us on the show. It's always a delight to meet with my good buddy, Bishop Brennan. Joining me is my other good buddy.
Hey.
Mr. Jonathan Keller from California Family Council. Good to have you on, Jonathan.
It's great to be here. I'm not as good of a buddy as Bishop Brennan, but I understand.
You're a better buddy.
Buddy, that's true.
But he's maybe a more important person.
I had it was funny. I was at, a couple days ago,
he's more of a get than you are. I'll put it that way.
That's
true. That's fair enough, given that you're here pretty much every week.
It was funny. I was at the Fresno Clovis Prayer Breakfast Committee meeting at the Black Bear Diner out in West Fresno a couple days ago. And it was just funny. If Bishop Brennan happens to be listening, you got a lot of fans on the Fresno Clovis Prayer Breakfast Committee.
Good.
Pastor Jim Franklin from Cornerstone Church was like, I really like that Bishop Brennan. I have lunch with him about once a month. And
does he?
He does. He says, he's great. He was just singing his praises. And then
how does Jim Franklin get lunch with him once a month? I don't get lunch with him once a month.
Well, and then on top of that,
I'm actually Catholic.
No, I know. Well, and then Sylvia Plum, who is the co-chair of the Fresno Clovis Prayer Breakfast Committee, I don't know what the context was, but she goes, "Oh yeah," and he has such an incredible singing voice.
He does have a very good voice. That is darn true.
So I don't know where she heard him sing, but she was saying,
The question is, where don't you hear him sing? So Bishop Brennan has an incredible set of pipes, and actually, I think he and he's friends with this gal, and she and her husband are very good buddies. Actually, I think they travel together and do stuff. I think they've recorded musical stuff together.
Wow.
And I've heard Bishop Brennan sing Vicente Fernandez and his classic song Yo Sigo Siendo El Rey, which is a great Yo Sigo Siendo El Rey. It's like a classic mariachi.
Wow.
At his installation mass as Bishop of Fresno. Afterwards, in the reception area, he sang this with a mariachi band and completely brought the house down. So,
that's impressive.
Anyway, so yeah, not to completely blow out the microphones there, Colton. Sorry,
got to put a compressor on there.
All right. Anyways, let's enough about Bishop Brennan. We love Bishop Brennan. He's phenomenal, and what's more, for those of you listening, I think he has, both for those of us on the Catholic side of the street, but I think for any of you listening who are any kind of Christian, I think has very much the right attitude when it comes to there needs to be a consistency between what you profess as a Christian on Sundays and what you live out in your life as a public official, and professing to be Christian on the one hand and promoting abortion on the other hand is very, very bad.
Yes.
So anyway, I think that message we definitely agree with. All right, Jonathan, let's actually get to that was enough of a segue that it's like if you were hosting the show. Okay,
That's
so
right.
Usually I'm the one who has to rein you in. All right. Let's talk about a really not kind of it's a kind of pop culture-y sort of thing, and a kind of a sad thing that I think relates to some messaging that we're doing more of at Right to Life. And that has to do with Britney Spears.
Yep. One of the only times maybe we have ever discussed Britney Spears.
I wonder if we ever have
show.
talked about Britney Spears on the show. I'm not sure that we have. So Britney Spears, for those who don't know, was a very famous, popular pop singer in the late 90s, 2000s, and continued to have a very successful pop singer career, was doing residencies in Las Vegas for a very long time. I think she's like 41 years old, or
she is 41. She'll be 42 in December.
Okay, so
that's correct.
In her early
I know
40s.
that not off the top of my head. I just want to point out I just looked up her Wikipedia page.
There we go. All right.
But John, I want to say, when you say she's very popular, just so people understand, again, this is Wikipedia.
She's Britney stinking Spears. Yeah,
150 million records worldwide.
Yeah, she's one of the most famous pop singers of the last 25 years, 100%. So Britney Spears was obviously had a lot of mental health problems and was placed under what's called a conservatorship. And a conservatorship is a kind of legal setup whereby basically it's almost like you get reduced down to the legal status of a child, where basically it's determined that you cannot make various kinds of legally binding decisions for yourself, And so you are put under your monies, your assets, your career decisions, contracts, etc., are put under the control of a conservator. And very often, this is something done for, say, this is sometimes done a lot for people who are struggling with homelessness. Often homelessness is attendant to things like, homelessness is often attendant to things like various kinds of drug problems or mental health disorders or things like that. So sometimes a conservatorship will be established for someone in that kind of a situation, like really bad mental health problems, things like that. Britney Spears was placed under that kind of a conservatorship, and her father, Jamie Spears, was her conservator. This was a big controversy, and people are saying, free Britney Spears, get her out of her conservatorship. Her dad's a bad guy. It did seem to be a kind of very intensely controlling conservatorship.
Sure.
It seemed even to the level of like she couldn't get married if she wanted to. She couldn't. It was very controlling. I don't know that it was universally a good thing. I would say that Britney Spears still seems to have some kind of mental health. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the most stable person in the world. She's constantly posting Instagram videos where she's not wearing clothes, and one recently where she was dancing with knives while wearing minimal clothing. Not what I would call the picture of solid mental health.
Yes.
Frankly, but I'm from the outside looking in, I have no idea. So I should, withholding my judgment. But anyway, she has, now that her conservatorship was ended by a court order, she appealed the legitimacy of her conservatorship, and a court ruled that she should no longer be under a conservator. Her dad is no longer her conservator. She's in charge of her own affairs. So she has released a memoir, which was very recently published. And in this memoir, she reveals that she had an abortion, that it was when she was dating the other incredibly famous singer, boy band superstar,
and
early 2000s.
Fellow Mickey Mouse Club member,
Justin Timberlake. And she basically says she did not want to have an abortion, and that Justin Timberlake pressured her into having one. Now, Justin Timberlake has he didn't really comment too much on it. I think he sort of issued I kind of wish we can all sort of focus on our existing families, not look to the past. I think it was some kind of statement like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Which I will say, I mean, if I'm Justin Timberlake, which thank goodness I'm not, honestly.
Yeah.
He is married.
He
does have several children.
Yeah.
But
so he does have kind of his own family now, yeah, and stuff like that. So
he's married to Jessica Biel. They have 2 children together.
Right. So he doesn't seem to be denying that they had an abortion.
Yep.
And now, whether he pressured her into it or not, we only kind of have her word for it.
Right.
Seemingly. So I don't want to completely
you don't want to be too credulous.
Well, I've seen a lot of pro-lifers who are like, shame on you, Justin Timberlake. And it's like, well, he hasn't even had a chance to kind of defend himself here. Like, do we know that she's telling the truth? I kind of would want to hear maybe him say something about it one way or another.
Right.
Before, it's kind of gratis necessary gratis negatur. It's asserted freely. And maybe he'll sue her for libel over this. I don't know. Maybe he's going to deny it. I don't know. So nonetheless, Britney Spears had this abortion. She is alleging that she was sort of coerced or highly pressured is probably a better phrasing, into having this abortion. I'm going to just accept for the sake of argument here, just as a discussion point, that let's take what Britney Spears is saying for the sake of argument here as true. Okay. It would not be crazy if that is in fact what happened.
Sure.
Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake were super famous pop stars. Maybe Justin Timberlake was like, I don't necessarily want to be tied to this person for the rest of my life. I don't want to have a kid right now. I'm not ready to have a kid, whatever he may have said. Now, they were both at the time multi-gazillionaires. Probably they could have figured out a way to make it work. I would have to say, financially speaking,
in a different show, adoption. I'll just say,
I mean, and maybe just the social idea that I'm a famous pop star, I don't place my kid for adoption. Like I don't know what it is. Is the one thing I will say though is this: abortion is constantly being presented as something to promote female autonomy. That is the way that abortion is justified, rationalized at a public policy level. Abortion is about women's autonomy. Her body, her choice. If you oppose that, you oppose women being able to make decisions, have control over their own bodies. And what we see outside Planned Parenthood so often is women who would keep their babies if they were in a position to keep them, and they feel like they can't. They feel like the circumstances that they're living under are coercing them into an abortion. They don't have enough money to support this pregnancy. They don't have a partner willing to help. They don't have this. They don't have...
If Britney Spears, literally one of the most famous, wealthiest pop stars in the world, she had every possible resource at her...
But to get to my point, though, if she has a partner pressuring her into doing it.
Right. If she felt that level of pressure...
Yeah, if she feels that pressure, how much more so someone who's barely scraping by?
Right. Exactly.
And this ties with some research from the Charlotte Lozier Institute, which is very recent research from the Charlotte Lozier Institute. A number of researchers, including... I need to get the actual names of this. I was just writing about this. I'll look this up while we're talking. The Charlotte Lozier Institute had some research saying that almost 70% of abortions were not, according to research, here it is, nearly 70% of abortions are coerced, unwanted, or inconsistent with the woman's preference. That's the precise language from this study from Charlotte Lozier Institute. 70% of abortions, 69-point-something% of abortions, are coerced, unwanted, or inconsistent with women's preferences. That was done by David Reardon.
70%.
Yeah. So here's even Britney Spears of all people. And as you say, Jonathan, yeah, like this is a incredibly wealthy woman, a mega super duper pop star dating another mega super duper pop star, gets pregnant with his child, and feels coerced, sort of bad, highly pressured by him into having this abortion. What about that is free? What about that is autonomous? It seems as though, to the contrary, she didn't have control. She was doing this because she was feeling coerced into doing it.
Yep.
How is that? And that's
not women's autonomy, not women's freedom.
None of this has anything to do with autonomy.
Yep.
What this has to do, seemingly, and again, we're taking for the moment, we're taking Britney Spears' word for this. Let's just take her word for it for the sake of argument. I'd want to hear fully Justin Timberlake's side of it, and let's just take Britney Spears' side of it just for the moment. It seems like what abortion is facilitating are in some cases, are men's preferences. Men's preferences not to be tied down by a burden. Men's preferences not to have a kid right now. Men's preferences. And that's pretty sick if that is indeed what happened. And again, we're withholding our judgment on this. But I think so often this idea of abortion as promoting bodily autonomy, and that's the chief normative value being protected, is just a complete lie. We're going to talk about this a little bit more after the break. This is Right to Life Radio, right here on Power Talk. We're back on Right to Life Radio. We're discussing, sort of a pop culture issue. the pop singer Britney Spears, in a recent memoir she released, has alleged that while she was dating Justin Timberlake, that she had an abortion, and that Justin Timberlake sort of pressured her into having the abortion. Obviously, we haven't 100% heard Justin Timberlake's side of the story, but it is an issue, Jonathan, where I do sort of wonder that I don't know if we sort of have a sanitized view of the world in general and maybe Hollywood in particular, but, I reflect upon the stat, and more I've been thinking about it, that by the age of 45, 1 out of every 4 American women will have had an abortion. That's, with 900,000 abortions that happen every single year, that is sort of the figure. That's the grim reality, is that 1 out of every 4 American women by the time they turn 45 will have had an abortion. And it makes me think we know of some women in Hollywood who have had, famous people, celebrities, whatever, who have had abortions. And I feel like we really don't, though. There's probably way more people than we know. Way more people than we realize, both famous people, not so famous people, we know, that have had abortions that we just don't know about. And I guess it kind of makes me, not that, you meet celebrities every day, but it does sort of make me wonder, like, how much political support Hollywood gives to abortion, but really, what is that serving? Is that, we had this huge reckoning in Hollywood over this Me Too concept. Basically, that people in Hollywood, powerful people in Hollywood, were engaging in various kinds of sexual harassment, to coercive sexual activity, to sexual assault, and getting away with it.
Right.
And it's, the history of Hollywood is riddled with examples of women being abused with this way. I think it would be incredibly naive of us to think that super pro Planned Parenthood Hollywood, that there aren't tons of abortions happen, that there aren't lots and lots of actresses who are having abortions and having it not be consistent with actually what they want, either them being pressured, they're being outright coerced. We know of a few, but, given what we know about celebrities and how they have very short marriages and they're going from one relationship to another relationship. How many? It's kind of a sad thing to think about.
Yes,
that there's probably way more of these kinds of abortions happening, and if even Britney Spears doesn't want this to happen and gets pressured into it, how much more so women without her economic power?
Yes, and the big thing that obviously a lot of people talked about with Harvey Weinstein was the fact that the famous idea of the casting couch.
Yeah.
And the idea that, hey, baby, if you want to get ahead in this business, all you got to do is
X, Y, and Z.
Right. And the likelihood that you have that happening, again, if big, powerful celebrities are talking about this, how much more so the struggling waitress in LA
trying to get
Nashville.
a gig. Trying to get a gig, trying to get a part on that show. Like, it just seems like that whole industry is so open for abuse. And that's another thing we've talked about with abortion. Abortion is a way for powerful men to get away with what they want and to cover up their own ill deeds. Mm-hmm. That's precisely what Britney Spears is alleging Justin Timberlake did to her. We don't know if that's true, but I do think, this is not about women's autonomy. I really believe that. That'll do it for Right to Life Radio. We will see you next time on Power Talk.